Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Boitano and Alan Saakyan.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So that was what is that, like 10 feet in diameter?
Yeah, it was scary. And it was elevated, so if you fell off, you would basically die in front of everybody, that's watching the Super Bowl halftime show. But it was plastic, actually. So it was plastic ice, and they put this vegetable oil on it to make your blades slide, but your blades get really warm and your feet start burning because of the friction. And the only time I'd ever skated on it was the night before. They had us on the field on those stages, and I practiced for like 2 hours because I couldn't do anything. And it was really hard. It's hard to skate on plastic, as you guys can imagine, when you're used to ice.
But not as hard as winning the Olympic championships.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Hard in a different way.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk about this overcoming fear and the anxiety associated with this doubt that we get when we chase our dreams and our goals. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody struggles with that. I learned at a very young age that the mental side of competition was going to be the hardest thing to, get under my belt and be secure with. It wasn't the actual performance or the athleticism or anything like that. It was what was going to happen when I was under this immense pressure of representing my country and my family, and knowing that going into the Olympic Games, it could change your life depending on how you did. So at a very young age, I started practicing my mental strength, lessons for mental strength. And I got to this, one point where everybody has that sort of voice inside of their head that always judges you. It's the judgmental voice, and I named it Murphy for Murphy's Law, and it would always tell me that I couldn't do things. And when I was in a practice, it would be like, you're not going to be able to do that. And then I actually put together like this tool chest of things that would counteract Murphy, and I practiced it on a regular basis. So
can we talk about the
tool
chest?
Yeah.
What were the things in the chest that you'd use?
The most valuable thing in the tool chest was the fact that you can talk back to the negative voice, and if you speak, for me, when I would speak in harsher tones, it would subside, it would go away. You can't just be kind with it. I wouldn't be like, hey Murphy, don't need you around right now. It's like, I just really need to, do this great performance. It's like, Murphy, get out of here. Like literally, it's being forceful with them. And those were some of the things that, that I learned along the way that really helped. In fact, as I was skating out, when they announced my name after the warm-up, my 6-minute warm-up, and they said, representing the United States, and I was skating out, and I was actually making laps in front of my coach before I went out, and Murphy came in and said, started talking, he goes, you're gonna blow it. You're gonna blow it. And I said, I started talking back to him, like, no, I'm consistent, I've practiced, I'm ready for this, I know I can do it. Nope, you're gonna blow it, and this is gonna be the first time that you blow it, and it's gonna be in front of all these people in the Olympics, and everybody's watching. And I literally had this conversation inside of my head with Murphy about to make it go away, and by the time I had reached my position where the music was starting, I had gotten rid of Murphy, and I literally turned my whole night around.
And would you say that then takes you into a state of flow once you're not worrying about anxiety? And
the thing about anxiety and the thing about judgmental voices is that it can snowball and get so out of control and so quickly. And when you're an athlete, the thing is that one negative thought, like I always say this, when you're in competition and things are happening very fast, there can be a thought like, a simple thought like, oh, I had tomatoes today, and that was my good luck food a year ago at the World Championships, and that makes you feel strong. But there are also little negative things that you can think of too, and once those negative things get planted in your brain, it snowballs so quickly. One thing becomes the next thing, and then you miss an element in the program, and then you're judging yourself more, and then the negative, you just can't stop it. So in my toolbox, my secret was to never let that voice get any traction at all. And so that's why I discovered Murphy, because as soon as I had a negative thought, I was like, get rid of it now. I'm not going to let it start a small snowball that can grow into a large snowball.
I like the harsh voice. You're taking control of it.
Yeah, you're forcing it. You're like, this is my body. This is my life. The negative thought, it's a judgmental voice is what it is. It's judging you. And you can change your mind, you can change your thoughts, and it makes sense that you would be strong with it.
Would you say that you also run simulations in your head of what it would look like to fail or do average or succeed with flying colors, and then you see how those things all play out?
It's interesting. That's a really good question. I've never had actually anyone ask that. I used to do this visual imagery every night before I would go to bed, and I would imagine myself skating a clean program and being at the end and see the standing ovation and feeling great about myself and imagining that I was doing a clean performance.
Yep.
Sometimes that stuff wasn't natural to my visualization. I would make mistakes in my visualization. And so then what I would do, I would switch up. I would imagine a performance that was just terrible. I'd be like, I'm falling on everything. I'm just imagining it, and I'm clearing the plate, and then I would go back to imagining perfection. And if I couldn't see the perfect jumping, I would just imagine the feeling that I had at the end of the performance. That's all I would visualize. I would imagine myself like with my fists going like this, sensing that I had done a great performance, and then maybe visualize me on the top of the podium with the American flag behind me.
Yes. Now, I'm sure that we all have judgment and anxiety that comes up about our goals, but how many of us actually practice the simulations of succeeding? Raise our hand.
That's good.
It's pretty good, yeah. Let's get maybe a third or half.
That's really good, yeah.
That seems to be a crucial component of the process.
Yeah,
is
huge.
visualizing succeeding in the end position and all the short-term steps you need to take along the way to get there.
And it's a commitment. You can't be lazy about it. It's important, but if you don't think it's important, you're not going to do it. People need to realize that it's a total element, and it's a layer of the importance of what you want to achieve. But if you just do it every once in a while, or that, you have to be committed. It's like, eating breakfast every morning or having coffee. It's like, I do that, and then this is my time that I'm going to work on this. You work on different things. You work on your body, you work on your mind, you work on staying positive.
Yes. And so by repeating these certain procedures that help you reach your goals, for example, the triple axel, first person in the US to land that. That is an incredible feat to accomplish. And so with us, we don't just get to that end goal. How did you program yourself to focus and repetition and to get used to your spirit of wanting to go do that over and over again until you were able to achieve it?
I think it's passion. You got to be passionate for what you're doing. I wanted to do anything and everything that I could to make myself better, because I was so passionate about skating. That's what I want. When I discovered skating at a very young age, I knew I wanted it to be for the rest of my life. I loved it so much. So because that passion was there, you are able to say, so now the passion is there. I want to do the work. I really want to do the work. And it doesn't matter what kind of work it is. If I want to be successful at this, I want to do anything that I can do that will help me. And that's where passion comes in, because you have to commit to doing those little things you might not want to do, but you're like, it's good for me, I've got to do it.
It's kind of like putting all your chips in.
Yeah, it is. It is like putting everything in. And a lot of the times when you put all your chips in, there are some elements that you don't really like doing, but you know what, it's good for you, and you got to do it.
Yeah. For example, I could have had 6 cookies today at lunch.
Good willpower. Murphy's like, you could have had that 6 cookie. But you didn't. See? You got Murphy.
I'm like, I'm going back to the salad. Yeah. And that's such a crucial component. All these chips forward. Some of us, even though there's certain aspects of putting ourselves fully in, we all do some sort of work with our entrepreneurship that might not seem to be the highest level visionary work. It seems to be tedious, and we're like, oh, I can't wait until somebody else does this part so I can focus on the high level stuff. But we get through that. We go through that with flying colors and achieve that, and then it opens up the door for us to do that high level vision later on, and other people will help us help with the same vision. So maybe with this whole like all chips forward, it seems as though, again, that's just such a necessity to wake up in the morning and have, I call it a fire under your ass. Yeah. So to have that burning super bright and waking up in the morning and knowing that this is what I'm building into the world. Yeah. So you had that, and
yeah, and I think that that leads to different things. That leads to, you have to have a plan. Everybody has to like know the stepping stones. When I have a youth skate program in San Francisco where I have school kids come in and learn skating, and invariably with these young kids, they come in and they say, I want to learn how to spin. This is their first time on the ice. And I'm like, well, you can't really spin yet, but I'm gonna tell you that the very first thing that you should start learning to do is swizzles with their feet. And they're like, no, I want to learn how to spin. And I'm like, well, these are stepping stones, and you got to take the first stepping stone to get to spinning, and maybe in a couple lessons you'll learn how to spin. They want nothing to do with that. And they don't really understand, and this is one of the most valuable things that I learned as an athlete, is you can't go from A to Z without going from A to B and to C and to D. You know, it's like literally you have to go, you have to figure it out, and that's part of the plan. How do you go, what's on level B? I'm at A, so to get there, and my coach used to make notebooks for me even at age 8 and say, by March next year, you should be doing a double toe loop consistently. So it's like I had these notes and these things of like how to take it to the next level, and every time you make the next level, it's this shell of strength that gets over you. Like people always say to me, how did you deal with that pressure of the Olympics? And like literally it's, and when I look back at it now, I think, how did I deal with that pressure of the Olympics? But it's those shells that cover you, and you go to those little layers and you just get used to it as you go, and it's like you live your life and just one little thin shell keeps covering you, and then all of a sudden it's this enormous shield over you, and it's protecting you from this incredible energy that's pressure, that is pressure. And we all have that in our life. I mean, it's, it may not be at the level of an Olympics, but to each person, it is their Olympics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to use that same format for life as you do in sports or the Olympics.
I love that analogy. You're going from A to Z, but you got to get to B, C, D.
You have to. There's no skipping.
And you're building this shield as well.
Yeah.
That down the line, pressure's easy.
Yeah.
It becomes easy after a while.
And the people who do get lucky and go from A to Z, like very quickly, they always have to go back to B. Yeah. They do. Because I knew skaters who were much more talented than me, and they just did they would try their triple loop, and they'd land it the first time, and they'd land it the next week and the next week. But when it came down to competition and them being nervous, and they're like, oh, I don't even know what I think of on this. It's not, I don't know my technique. I just do it, and then they would miss it in competition. And so then they'd have to go back to B to figure out exactly the technique that they were thinking of. I was the opposite way. I didn't land anything quickly ever, but on those layers and those layers, I learned exactly what worked and didn't work, and I remembered those. So by the time I would get into competition, I'm like, okay, I know to do a triple loop. I have to have my left arm here instead of here, and that's what works. Whereas those people had to go back to B, whereas I would do it in order.
Yeah. Did you apply any practices of meditation or breath work?
Everything. And it was important to do it on a daily basis. So I did breath work, I did relaxation techniques. I would do it, I skated for 5.5 hours a day, and I would do it constantly practicing. And I would imagine that each time I did a run-through, well, I would only allow myself one run-through of the program, and I would imagine that this was competition. So it was my one and only time. I would get nervous every day for my practices, and during those practices, I would do like my techniques, relaxing my shoulders. You hear about the simple techniques. The simple techniques are the most efficient too. It's like, imagine yourself going down in an elevator, and it's like 10, 9, 8, 7, that whole thing, relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your arms. But then there were other nuances that I discovered, like that, the relaxing my arms. I read a book about how just if your arms are relaxed, and so I would use that during my skating program. So when I would be getting nervous or my biggest jump was coming up, I'd be like, relax your arms. And I would use it as part of the choreography of the thinking process. It's like my technical thing, like how I talked about to do my triple loop, I knew my arm had to be here. I would actually choreograph the thought of relaxing my arms into the program. So that was part of my toolbox, elements in my toolbox that I discovered.
It seems like maybe relax is a crucial part of flow, of getting into flow.
Huge. That's very insightful. The more relaxed that you can be, the more you can allow your body to just do what comes naturally to it. Yeah. I always say if people force themselves too much, their movement, like for at least an athlete, their movement is, and I don't know, this might be with your brain too, if you do what comes naturally to you or what's organic, I think it's probably the right thing to do. So if you can just get to a point where you do relax in that way, you usually organically go to the right choice.
Yeah. It's so right. It's so right. It is. Yeah.
I don't know if it's right or wrong, but
even
it would work for me,
but simultaneously vigilant as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Which is that's tough to find that, but relaxation and being vigilant at the same time.
It's a dance, but it's about practicing it. Yeah. It doesn't come overnight. It's something that you have to learn how to do. Yeah. And everybody has a different level of vigilance versus relaxation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. So right now, what are your focuses? You skate's a big focus right now?
You skate? No, it's one of my focuses. I do a lot of.
I can't stop thinking about the kids that come in and they're like, I want to spin right away.
They do.
They're like dreamers. They're dreamers.
Yeah,
right
they
away.
do. Yeah. But the good thing about the kids coming in for you skate is they can't skate with phones in their hands. So it's like literally they put the phones down and they're actually skating. It's so nice to see, them being able to do something that they feel good about themselves, this accomplishment. And we try to encourage them, as much if they're holding onto the rail in 5 minutes, they're not. And you're like, oh, you're off the rail. So it's like, it's nice for kids to have this athletic element that they can feel good about themselves, Yeah. And it's not about, oh, they're going to be a champion someday. It's just about feeling good about yourself.
Yeah. And they're training their motor skills as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your focuses now. What are you focused on? What are you building into the world now?
I'm actually really focused. I did a show on Food Network and a show on HGTV, and so I'm actually...
and South Park. What would Brian Boitano do?
I didn't actually do that, though.
I know, but they did that for you.
I got to tell you, talking about the youth, some of the youth scares me. Just because some of the kids came into the rink and they said, "You're the dude on South Park. What was it like to be on South Park?" And I'm like, well, no. First of all, they said, "We didn't know you skate." I'm like, well, I'm skating on South Park, so it's like. I'm skating in the animated thing, and they're like, yeah, what was it like to be on South Park? And I'm like, well, I wasn't really on South Park, it's animated. And they're like, yeah, but you were still on it, right? And I'm like, yeah, but it was they didn't get it, so I was like, okay, I'm moving on to the next. Murphy's like, let these kids go.
Okay, so what are we focused on?
Oh yeah. So anyway, I'm doing. I'm trying to do stuff that's like sort of lifestyle. I have a house that I did for HGTV. I renovated a house in Italy that was my great-great-grandfather's house, and I bought it and renovated it, and now I live in this village of part-time, obviously. It's a village of 500 Boitanos. It's a small village.
Wait,
and
what?
Yeah, it's where every Boitano came from in the world. That's my last name, Boitano, yeah.
500?
See what I'm saying about the kids? Yeah. Let it go, let it go.
Are you related to all of them?
Yes.
All 500
Every
of them?
single Boitano who is in the world came from that one little village. Is that hard to understand?
And that's crazy. I've never heard of that. That's amazing. So everyone's like, a lot of people still live there. And
Well,
like,
other Boitanos, because they're originally from there. So my ancestors immigrated
so they're not
from
all
there.
blood either, right? They're not all blood. It's just the last name? Or are they all blood too?
Well, most Boitanos are all related. Most Boitanos are all related.
Who do you breed with?
Other people called Cordanos or
All right.
Cheraginas. There were 4 family names that were in there. So it's like they're not all
Boitanos.
But I said every Boitano came from there. So anyway, I went back and I renovated that house. And so we... I like that. That's good.
Okay, Brian Boitano, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, that was funny.
That was awesome. Great. So that's a first question we've heard from this stage. Who do you breed with? It's like, we gotta save that for, I'm writing that one down.
Should make sure we ask all of our speakers.
Look, it's a tradition. It started out as a joke, but we have to ask it. And so wait till Damon gets that one.